So, good evening everyone for the live session of week 11, and in today's class we'll be talking about hydrologic statistics. So in this course, like till now, we have covered all the hydrological processes. So we have covered and we have talked about precipitation, we have talked about evapotranspiration, we have talked about transpiration, infiltration and runoff. So we have covered all the hydrological processes, and we have seen then whenever we are talking about any of the hydrological processes, all the hydrological processes, there are some uncertainties, and in order to solve these uncertainties, what we can do is we can take the use of statistics, right? And not only statistics, we can also apply probability also. So in today's class we are going to talk about methods of probability and statistics that are involved in order to assess this uncertainty, and this uncertainty are nothing but, we can call that this, all the hydrological variables are nothing but they are random variables. So we are going to apply all the methods of probability and statistics to in order to analyze the random variable, right? So we know what is the definition of probability. We have studied this in our lower class also. Like probability is nothing but it is the occurrence of an event or random variable among a set of alternatives. So we have covered like there are problem based on rolling of a dice or a pack of cards. So those kind of things we have studied in lower class. But here we are going to strictly adhere to the hydrological analysis, right? So we'll talk about, let us say we want to find the probability of rainy days in a month, right? So that kind of thing we are going to cover in today's class. So probability, we know what is probability. It is nothing but the occurrence of an event with respect to set of alternatives, right? Then let us talk about two different types of variable. So the first variable that we are going to talk about is random variable. So what are random variables? So as I said, all hydrological variables are random, but what makes them a random variable? So random variables are those variables that can have any value but within a certain range. So let us say we are talking about temperature. So the value of temperature, it could be any value, but let us say we are talking about temperature for a particular area. So let us say we are talking about temperature of Delhi. So the value of temperature could be anything, right, for any particular day throughout the year. So that kind of data or variable is called random variable. So here we can see variable which can assume any value within certain range are called random variable, right? And we have given the example as rainfall, because rainfall could be any value within a 24 hours, right? So rainfall for a day could be any value. Again, the random variables are classified into two heads, that is discrete and continuous. So what makes a variable discrete random and what makes a variable continuous random? So let us see the difference between discrete and random continuous. So a discrete random variable could be any variable which can be countable. It means that value could be finite. But if we talk about continuous, that value, it cannot be countable, but it could be in a range. So let us say a discrete random variable could be a value like, let us say, a flood event. So if you are talking about a particular day, there could be flood or there cannot be a flood, right? So the value can be 1 if there is flood. The probability of flood is 1 when there is flood, and the probability of flood is 0 when there is no flood. So that this value which we can count, that is the event of flood, is nothing but it is discrete random variable. But when we talk about continuous random variable, the value could be within a certain range, right? So that is the difference between discrete random and continuous random. Now here we are going to talk about concepts of probability. So in the concepts of probability, first let us define what is population, right? So population are nothing but a large set of data which are having constant statistical property, right? And here the statistical property is nothing but the mean of the data and the standard deviation. So whenever we have a large set of data and their statistical properties such as mean and standard deviation are constant, we call such large set of data as population, right? So population is nothing but a large set of data whose statistical properties are constant. Then what if these properties are not constant? Let us say we have a data set whose mu and standard deviation keeps on changing. So such set of data are called sample. So population is a large set of data and sample are comparatively less. So let us say if you are talking about precipitation data for 100 years, right? So that makes it a population because the data set is very high. Given the condition, the mu and sigma are constant. But if you are talking about a particular duration, let us say for past 3 decades, that is from 1990 to 2024. So we have reduced the size of the data, and also we have observed that the statistical properties are changing over the period of time. So that kind of data is sample. Then next comes event. So now let us say we have a sample of precipitation data for 30 years. So this is the sample, and this is nothing but let us say this is monthly data. So the total sample size would be 30 into 12, that is 360. So 360 data points are nothing but the sample space of the sample which we have. Now what is an event? So event is anything which we are giving as a condition. Let us say we want to check the event when the precipitation value crosses a certain threshold. Let us say we want the event when precipitation is greater than 100 mm. So we are capturing the extreme events. So what we are going to do is we are going to check how many times the precipitation from the sample space, that is of 360, crosses the value of 100. So the event could be any value between, but it should be between 0 to 360, right? Because we know the probability of any event is between 0 to 1, right? So we are taking here the event as precipitation which is above or equal to 100 mm. Then there are certain concepts of probability that we have also studied. So let us revise them. So the first concept of probability that we are going to study is that the total probability that we have seen just now also, that the total probability of any event is always equal to 1. This is the first concept that we have studied in the lower class. Then we have studied something called as complementary rule. So what is complementary rule? It is nothing but the opposite of whatever we have kept as an event. Let us say we are capturing the event of A, probability of A, and the probability of A is nothing but whenever the event, that is precipitation, is greater than 100 mm. So this is nothing but probability of A, that is when precipitation is greater than 100. But there are some values when the precipitation is less than 100. So how we can calculate that? That we can use complementary rule. So let us say P of B, and P of B is what? Precipitation less than 100 mm. So probability of B could be probability 1 minus probability of A. So this is how we can use complementary rule. Then the third is intersection, right? We have studied law of intersection. So law of intersection could be is nothing but joint probability. Like when both the events are occurring and we are taking the probability of both the events, then we can get the joint probability of both the events. So we have seen this. This is A, this is B. And we know the probability of A and B is this shaded area. This is when both the events are occurring at the same time, right? So we have studied law of intersection. Then we have studied law of union also. So P of A and B is means when probability of A or probability of B is occurring, right? So let us say we have two conditions here. The one condition is when both the probability are independent and mutually exclusive. This is the case when the probability and A and B are independent and mutually exclusive. So what happens? So for this condition, since A and B are independent and are mutually exclusive, we can say that their joint probability would be 0. So we can say that the probability of A union B is nothing but the sum of probability of A and probability of B. So this all are the basic concept that we have studied in the intermediate level, right? Then there is something called as conditional probability, and this is something which is very important when we are talking about hydrologic statistics. So law of conditional probability. So what does law of conditional probability say? It states that the probability of one event when the other event has already occurred, right? It states that the probability of, let us say, event B, there is some event B given event A has already occurred. So how we can represent it mathematically? We can say that the probability of A given probability of B given A is equals to probability of A and B, means their joint probability, divided by probability of the event which has already occurred. So in this case, the probability of A. So this will give us the probability, conditional probability of B given probability of A has occurred. So for this we can take an example. Let us say we have an event A where the precipitation is less than 100 centimeter given year, right? And B is precipitation less than 100 centimeter next year. So we are going to check the probability of B, which is going to happen next year, condition that the probability of A has already occurred. So we can calculate this by using the above equation of conditional probability. So for this we can take a solved example as well, which has already been covered in the numerical class, but again we are going to take a similar kind of example. Here what they are given is, there are two events. The first event is an event where landslide is taking place. Given the condition, flood has already occurred. Right? So this is the conditional probability for landslide, that landslide is going to occur, condition that flood has already occurred, and the probability of this is 0.4. And also there is another conditional probability that flood is occurred, condition landslide has occurred, a vice versa condition of the above. And let us say the probability of this is 0.6. So we have two conditional probability. The first condition states that landslide has occurred, condition flood has already occurred. Another is the quite opposite of the previous one. So both the conditional probability is there with us. They are saying that the joint probability of these two events, the joint probability of these two events is 0.2. And they are asking us to calculate the probability of individual event, that is the probability of landslide and probability of flood. So this we can solve by using the conditional probability concept. So how we are going to use? So first let us assume the probability of landslide as A and probability of flood equals to B. These are the unknown that we are going to calculate, right? So let us take the given data. Given data, they are saying conditional probability that landslide is occurring, condition flood has already occurred. Means P of A condition of B is equals to 0.4, and probability of flood condition landslide has already occurred is 0.6, and we know the joint probability also. So we can use the conditional probability here, that is probability of A by B is equals to probability of A intersection B condition B has occurred, right? So this term is known to us, this is 0.4, intersection is 0.2, so we can get the value of flood here. So the probability of flood would be 0.2 divided by 0.4, this is nothing but 0.5. And similarly we can say probability of B condition A has occurred is joint probability of A and B divided by probability of A. So here we can calculate the value of probability of A, that is landslide, as 0.2 divided by 0.6, that is 0.33. So this is how we can use the concept of conditional probability, and we can calculate individual or joint or conditional probability given whatever is there in the data set, whatever they have given in the data set. So these are all like whatever we have talked till now has already been covered in the previous class, but we have just taken the example of hydrological processes, right, or any hydrological event. Now we are going to talk morely about probability distribution, like what is probability distribution and what are the basics statistics concept, like we are going to talk about central tendency here, and also what is probability distribution. So first we are going to talk about what is probability distribution. So probability distribution will give us the relation between, any random variable, that is any random variable, and its corresponding probability value. So the probability distribution will help us to derive the relation between a random variable and its corresponding probability value. So let us say we have random variable of temperature, right? So we have a week temperature, daily week temperature. So we have 7 values with us, that is 30, 32, 34, 33, 31, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to plot this value with their probability. So we are going to calculate the probability of occurrence of 30 temperature. So let us say that probability is something here, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8 and 1. So we are going to plot this. So the probability of A these are the probability. So we are going to plot this. So some curve is coming. So this is nothing but the distribution curve for temperature data, right? So it helps us to derive the relation between the variable and the occurrence of its probability, right? Now as we have covered previously also, there are 2 different types of random variable. So the first variable is discrete, right? So first we are going to talk about discrete random variable. So for discrete random variable, there are 2 functions. First is probability mass function and another is cumulative mass function. So what does probability mass function and cumulative mass function of a discrete random variable gives? So the probability mass function will help us to give the probability of a discrete random variable. So it will give us the probability of discrete random variable. Whereas cumulative mass function will give us the cumulative probability. Cumulative probability of discrete random variable, right? So we can mathematically write this p of x less than equal to small x is equals to p of x. So here capital X is the random variable, discrete random variable. Small x is a specified value. Let us say we are giving the probability of precipitation whenever the precipitation value is less than or equal to 100 mm. So 100 mm is the specified value here. And we are going to check the probability, that is p of x is nothing but the probability mass function. So the value of probability mass function will lie between 0 to 1, right? So this is all about discrete random variable. So whenever we are talking about discrete random variable, we'll talk about two mass function. First is probability mass function, which gives the probability of discrete random variable, and another is cumulative mass function. Now we can take an example. We can say we have 7 precipitation data value. So we can plot the probability distribution for that discrete random variable. So let us say we have rainy days in a month as 10. So let us say in the month of July we have 10 rainfall event, right? So we are going to plot the probability distribution for them. So this makes it discrete. Since we know the exact number of events, we can call such random variable as discrete random variable. But let us say we don't know the exact value of any random variable. Let us say we can say the total number of rainfall, we are predicting that the total number of rainfall in the next month may be between 7 to 10. So that makes it a continuous random variable because we are defining a particular range of 7 to 10. But when we know exact value, we can say that that random variable is discrete random variable. So here we are going to plot a probability distribution to this, right? So probability distribution is plotted between the event or variable. Let us say variable. Here the variable is number of rainy days. So the number of rainy days are 10. And we are going to calculate the probability, right? So the probability of value would be coming on the y-axis, right? And then we are going to fit it curve to it. So this is nothing but the probability distribution. That means it gives the probability of a particular discrete random variable. And also let us look into cumulative mass function. So the cumulative mass function will give the cumulative probability. So what we are going to do is we are going to add the probability of discrete random variable. So same on x-axis there won't be any change, but on the y-axis what is going to change is, on the previous case there was probability of discrete random variable, but here it is cumulative probability. So cumulative probability means, let us say the probability of 1 was 0.05, and probability of A is 0.05, probability of B is also 0.05. So now the probability of B is 0.05, but since you are taking cumulative, it will become 0.1. So we are going to add it, right? So we can say that the cumulative probability is going to come something like this. So cumulative probability gives us the relationship between the discrete random variable and the cumulative probability. So this is all about discrete random variable. What if the variable is a continuous random variable? So how we can analyze a continuous random variable? So let us see the probability distribution for the case of continuous random variable. So in case of continuous random variable, the best way is to plot a frequency histogram. So what does frequency histograms does is, firstly it will divide the entire data set into different classes, right? And then it will check like in which particular class how many number of observations are coming. That is nothing but the frequency value. And then we are going to plot the frequency versus the divided class. And the representation could be in terms of bar. So let us say we have divided the entire data sets into 5 classes. So this is class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4 and 5. And we have checked the occurrence of event in class 1. So let us say the number of observation in class 1 was 5, in class 2 was 10, in class 3 was 15, in class 4 was again 10 and 5. So the probability distribution could be something like this, right? So for continuous random variable we can use the help of histogram. Now similarly, like we have seen in the case of discrete random variable, we have seen probability mass function. So in case of density, the continuous variable, it becomes probability density function. We call it as probability density function. So in the same way how probability mass function give us the relationship between discrete random variable and probability of occurrence, here probability density function, that is PDF, it helps us to derive the relation between continuous random variable and its probability, right? But here what changes is, if we recall the equation of PMF, that is probability mass function, the equation was probability of x less than or equal to small x is equals to P of x. This was the case of discrete random variable, because we know that the value of x is specified. But in case of density continuous function, the value is not fixed, the value would be in some range, right? So what changes is the left term of the equation changes. So the probability would be less than or equal to small x1 or greater than or equal to x2. So there would be some range here, x1 to x2 f of x dx, right? And here f of x dx is nothing but the PDF, probability density function. So this is nothing but we call it as probability density function for a continuous random variable. Similarly, we have cumulative density distribution function. We call it as CDF. So what does CDF give? CDF gives the cumulative probability versus continuous random variable. So this is same as the case of discrete random variable, right? Now we can talk about the basic of statistics, that is descriptive statistics. So here we are going to talk about 4 different measures. The first measure is measure of central tendency. So what does measure of central tendency gives? It gives us the expected value or expected value. That is, it gives us the value of mu, that is mean. It gives us the value of median, and it gives us the value of mode. So with the help of central tendency, we can calculate 3 terms, that is mean, median and mode of a particular sample. Then the next measure is measure of dispersion, right? So measure of dispersion gives us 2 variables, that is, it helps us to define the variance of the sample as well as the standard deviation. The next is measure of symmetry. So the measure of symmetry could be defined with the skewness of the sample. So if we can calculate the skewness of the sample, we can define the measure of symmetry. And the last is measure of pickedness. For this we can calculate kurtosis, like what is the peak of the sample. So let us look into one by one each of the central tendency. The first we are going to talk about measure of central tendency, which help us to define the mean of the data set. So the mean of the data set could be defined in 2 ways. The first is, let us say we have a sample of continuous random variable, right? So we have a population of data and all the data sets are continuous random variable, and we want to calculate its mean. So how we can do is, we can calculate the mean by using the definition of mean, that is, it is nothing but first moment about the origin. So we are going to take the moment about the origin. So this is the equation for that, and using this equation we can calculate the value of mean. So this is the case of a continuous random variable. Or let us say we have another example, and all the data sets are discrete random variable. So in case of discrete random variable, we can calculate E of x, that is mean, as product of x and p of x. So this is the case for discrete random variable, this is the case for continuous random variable. If we talk about measure of dispersion, the measure of dispersion, we can calculate the value of variance and standard deviation. So variance is nothing but second moment, right? So we are going to take second moment with respect to mean. When we were calculating mean, we have taken the moment with respect to origin, but now when we are taking variance, calculating variance, we are going to take second moment about the mean. So if we look at the equation 1, we can change the equation 1 and we can calculate the value of variance. The important thing to remember is it is second moment, so we have to take the square. So we are going to calculate x minus mu and x square. So this is nothing but variance, and this is for continuous random variable. So it would be minus infinity to infinity x minus mu square f of x dx. Right? So if we look at the equation 1, the only thing that will be changing is the square term, and there we have taken it about origin, therefore the mean was 0. The equation should be x minus mu when we are taking about mean, but since for mean we are taking about origin, the mu terms become 0. So that is why it is x f of x dx, but in case of variance it would be x minus mu square f of x dx. And the same change would be there for discrete random variable as well. So the equation for discrete random variable would be x minus mu square p of x. So this is second moment about mean will give us the value of variance. So this is measure of dispersion. Similarly, if we talk about measure of symmetry, that means we are going to calculate skewness, and measure of dispersion is nothing but third moment. So the equation would be E x minus mu whole cube equals to minus infinity to infinity x minus mu cube f of x dx. And the last measure is measure of pickedness, which is defined as fourth moment. Fourth moment means we are going to just change the power, E x minus mu whole to the power 4 minus infinity to infinity x minus mu whole raised to the power 4 f of x dx. So this is only for continuous random variable. Similarly, we can write the equation for discrete random variable also. So when we talk about skewness and pickedness, let us see an example. So the skewness could be positive or negative, right? It depends upon the data. So let us say we have a data set where there is higher number of larger data, right? It means the larger data are higher in number. So in that case, the distribution is skewed to the left. So whenever the distribution is skewed towards the left of your mean, we can say that kind of skews is nothing but positively skewed. And if the distribution is skewed towards the right of your mean, so we can say that is nothing but negatively skewed. Similarly for the pickedness also, let us say we have a normal distribution, bell-shaped curve, and we have another distribution which perfectly fits the data, right, which we are giving showing here. So here we can say that so here if you look at the red curve, here when we look at the red curve, we can say that the peak has been increased, right? So we can say this as positive kurtosis, right? And similarly when the peak is reduced, we can call it as negative kurtosis. So the skewness could be positive, negative, and at the same time the kurtosis, that is the measure of pickedness, could also be positive or negative. Now let us see what are the different types of probability distribution that could be used to fit any kind of data set. So it depends on the type of variable that we have. So we have two types of variable, that is discrete and continuous, right? So for discrete variable, we have two different types of distribution, and we call those distribution as binomial or Poisson. This we have studied in the lower class also. And for continuous, we can use one parameter, two parameter, or three parameter distribution such as exponential, gamma, normal, Gumbel, and there are many. So we are going to talk first about discrete probability distribution, right? That is binomial distribution. So what does binomial distribution give us? So binomial distribution will give us the probability of only two outcomes in an experiment, that is either true or false, that is success or failure, that is whether an event has occurred or not occurred. So binomial distribution will divide the probability into two parts, that is whether it has occurred or whether it has not occurred, right? So if you look at the equation of binomial distribution, that is P of nr is equals to n factorial upon n minus r the whole factorial, P of r q raised to n minus r. So what does this means? It means here the binomial distribution is giving the probability of occurrence of an event exactly r times in n successive trial. It means we are going to repeat the experiment n number of times, and we are checking whether the event has occurred or not. So if let us say we have tried an experiment for 10 times, and out of this 10 times the success was achieved 4 times. So it means the probability we are going to find is probability of 10, 4, right? So here the value of n is number of times we have done the experiment, r is nothing but the successive rate or successive trial, and p is nothing but the probability of occurrence of event. And if similarly if we want to find the probability of not occurring, we can use complementary rule, that is p of b is equals to 1 minus p of a, or simply we can write q equals to 1 minus p, given p is probability of occurrence. In the same way, we can use Poisson's distribution also. What happens in Poisson distribution is we are going to use Poisson distribution when we have a comparatively larger set of data. So in that case we are going to use Poisson distribution. The equation for Poisson distribution is lambda to the power of x into e to the power of minus lambda divided by x factorial, right? Where lambda is nothing but NP, that is the mean of the distribution. So if we know the mean of the distribution and we know that the value is, the variables are discrete, we can also use Poisson distribution. Now if you are talking about continuous random variable. So for continuous random variable we can use different distribution depending upon the, and each distribution is dependent on different parameters. So firstly we are talking about exponential distribution, which is nothing but a single parameter based distribution. So if we talk about the equation, if you look at the equation of exponential distribution, it is lambda e to the power of lambda x. So if we know the value of lambda, we can calculate the PDF, and also we can calculate the CDF of this distribution, 1 minus e to the power of minus lambda x. So this kind of distribution is used to determine the time interval between occurrence of flood event. So if you want to calculate like a flood A has occurred at certain time period and flood B has occurred at certain time period, and if you want to find the time interval, in that kind of case we can use of exponential distribution. Then there is gamma distribution. So if we want to determine the time of the nth event, there are series of events, and if we want to determine the time of the nth event, in that case we can use of gamma distribution, and gamma distribution is nothing but a 2-parameter distribution. So those 2 parameters are nothing but scale parameter and shape parameter, that is alpha and beta. Similarly we can use normal distribution. We are very familiar with normal distribution, right? It is a symmetrical shape curve. So if we have a data set and if we know the value of mu and sigma, so we can calculate the standard normal variate of that. That is, we can calculate the probability of continuous random variable by using the simple equation x z equals to x mu minus z. So what we are doing is we are making the distribution as standard normal, which means we are making the value of mu equals to 0 and sigma equals to 1. Then there is extreme value distribution. So these equations are used for extreme event analysis. That is, it could be used for flood event or it could be used for drought event. That is for maximum extreme or minimum extreme. That is when the precipitation is maximum or the precipitation is minimum. This is also a 2-parameter distribution, alpha and beta, where alpha is a scale parameter whose value should be greater than 0, and beta is location parameter whose value should be between minus infinity to infinity. Now we are going to talk about frequency analysis, like what is the main purpose of all this statistics and probability that we are studied so far. So the important or the main use is to calculate or to analyze frequency. So we are mostly interested in extreme events. So extreme events means it could be flood, it could be drought, right? So both the events are associated with the amount of precipitation, right? So when the precipitation amount exceeds the peak value or exceeds the maximum value, we can say it could be a case of flood. And similarly, when the precipitation amount is minimum, is very minimum or below minimum, we can say it is a case of drought. So both are associated with extreme value, right? So what we are interested here is we are interested in here to calculate the frequency of such events, that is the number of occurrence of such events, and we want to develop a relation between the magnitude as well as the frequency of occurrence, right? So we want to derive a relation between magnitude and frequency. And we know that the probability distribution can give us the relation between the magnitude of extreme event with their number of occurrence. So frequency analysis is basically used to derive relation between magnitude and frequency of occurrence through probability distribution. So if we look at the use of frequency analysis, so with the use of frequency analysis, we can calculate the occurrence of extreme events such as drought and flood. This is the example that we have covered. Then also we can design the dam based on the frequency analysis, right? All the flood control structure, that is dams, bridge, culverts, we can design by doing the frequency analysis, right? Then there are two important assumptions that are associated with frequency analysis. The first assumption is that we have considered the system to be stochastic. The system is considered to be stochastic. It means there is randomness, right? And also it means that the system is independent with respect to time and space. And the second is the data sets are assumed to be independent and identically distributed. Right, so these are the two basic assumptions that is there when we are doing frequency analysis. The first is the system is stochastic, and other is the data is following IID. IID means identical independent or independent identical distribution, which means that throughout the data set, let us say if we have 30 years of monthly data set, the distribution for each month would be same. All the distributions are identical and they are not dependent, they are independent. It means that the data set or the distribution for first year is independent of the distribution of second year. So the data sets are not dependent, but at the same time the distribution is same throughout for the entire data. Then the important thing is to calculate return period. So we know what is return period. It is the average interval between the occurrence of an event, right? So let us say we had a flood event that has occurred 10 years back, and then again after 10 years we have a flood event of similar magnitude. So we can say that the return period of that flood event is 10 years. So the magnitude of that event should be same. So if the magnitude of a certain event is same and it is repeating after n number of years, we can say that that particular n years is nothing but the return period of that particular magnitude event. So here we are given an example of there was a rainfall event of 25 centimeter, right, at a station A. So they are saying that another rainfall event of 25 centimeter has occurred after 10 years at station B, at same station. So we can say that after 10 years it has occurred. It means the return period for that particular event is 10 years. So there is a relationship between return period and probability, and that relation is probability is equals to 1 upon t. So using this relation we can calculate the return period for a particular probability of occurrence, right? So this is the probability of occurrence. So if we want to calculate the probability of non-occurrence, so we can calculate, that is q equals to 1 minus p. Also if we want to calculate the probability of non-occurrence in n years, so we can calculate 1 minus p to the power of n. If we want to calculate the probability of occurrence, let us say once, at least once, so we can calculate probability equals to 1 minus 1 upon t whole to the power of n. We can also do this frequency analysis with the help of plots, right? So we can do probability plotting. So how we can do probability plotting? So there are certain steps that are required. So let us say firstly we have data set, right? So we have data set, and we are going to what we are going to do is we are going to calculate the rank of the event, and that rank of event should be calculated firstly by converting or arranging the data set in descending order, right? So this is the, we'll first see what is the approach. So we are checking, or we are creating is probability plotting. It is one of the method to derive the relationship between magnitude and the frequency of event. So the first step is to arrange your data, arrange the data in descending order. This is the first step. The second step is to rank the data. So the rank 1 would be for the highest value and the rank n would be for the lowest value. And with the help of rank and the number of event, we can calculate the probability. So in order to calculate the probability, there are various methods. So we have California method, which states that the probability is nothing but the ratio of m by n. This is California method. Right, so this is one of the empirical formula which can be used to calculate the probability by knowing the rank and the frequency and the number of data set that we have. Then there is another method called as Hazen method, and it has given the empirical equation as m minus 0.5 divided by n. Then there is Weibull equation, which states that m upon n plus 1 is equals to probability. So using any of the empirical equation and knowing the rank and the total number of data sets, we can calculate the probability of that particular event. Right? So here we can take a example also. We have a data set with us which has recorded annual rainfall. Right? So we have the data set from 1975 to 2000. Right? So what we are going to do is, firstly we are going to convert this annual data sets and we are going to arrange it into descending order. Right? So if you look at the column 3 here we have arranged the data sets in descending order, and the next step is now to rank the data. So the first rank is given to the highest value, that is 2013. So this is nothing but m. Now the next step is to calculate probability, and to calculate probability we can use any of the empirical formula. So for this problem we have used Weibull equation, that is m upon n plus 1. So where m is nothing but the rank assigned to that particular event and n is the total number of observation. So if you look at here, the total number of observations are 16, right? So 1 upon 1 plus 16, it gives us the value of 0.037. So this way we have calculated the probability. And also now, since we know the value of probability and we know the relation between time period and probability, we can calculate time period also, that is return period. So we have calculated the return period also. Now what we want to derive the relation between the magnitude and frequency, and in this question they have asked us the annual rainfall with a return period of 20 years and 15 years. Right? So we want to calculate the annual rainfall with return period of 20 years and 50 years. So firstly what we are going to do is we are going to plot a return period versus annual rainfall ka curve. So annual rainfall we have here and we have return period also. So we are going to plot them. So return period is on the x-axis and annual rainfall is plotted on the y-axis. And now they have asked to calculate the annual rainfall for 20 years return period. So from this curve, if we look at 20, the value corresponding to this will give us the value of annual rainfall corresponding to 20 years return period. So here you can say that 20 years return annual rainfall is 2003. Alright, so it says that an event of 203 centimeter would again come after 20 years, followed by a period of 20 years. And similarly for 50 years, if we check, the return level is 238. So here we can say that the more the magnitude, the more would be the return period. Right? When the return magnitude was 203, the return period was 20 years. But as the magnitude increases, we see that the return period is also increasing. Then the next thing they have asked here is to calculate the probability of annual rainfall exceeding or equal to 160 centimeter. So we want to calculate the probability of event whose magnitude is 160. So we have a data set whose value is 160 here. And if you look at this, the magnitude of this event is 160. We want to calculate is the probability. So for this event, the probability is 0.022, that means 22%, right? So we have calculated the probability also. The next thing they are asking is to calculate 90% dependable annual rainfall. 90% dependable annual rainfall means annual rainfall whose probability is 90%. So let us see a probability whose value is 90%. So if you look at this value 0.889, it is almost 0.9. So for this the probability is almost 0.9. So they are asking is annual 90% dependable annual rainfall. So we can say that the value of rainfall would be something around 104, 101 with a probability with a return period of 1.13. So the 90% dependable annual rainfall is nothing but 101. As we have seen, this value is quite closer to 0.9, that is 90%. So we can say that the 90% dependable annual rainfall is 101 with a return period of 1.13 years. So this is how we can use probability plotting, and we can derive the relationship between frequency and magnitude using probability distribution. Now the next thing, the last thing is to analyze extreme value analysis, to look into extreme value analysis. So we know that extreme values are selected that from a set of data which could be either maximum or a minimum value, right? So extreme value, we know that extreme value will have always higher magnitude and lower frequency. So example is annual maximum discharge or annual maximum precipitation value of each year of historical record. So in order to analyze extreme value, we can use three probability distribution. The first is extreme value type 1, extreme value type 2 and extreme value type 3. So from this three, whenever we are talking about a maximum extreme, right, toward the higher end, we can always use extreme value type 1. And if we are looking into extreme value towards the minimum end, we can use extreme value type 3, that is Weibull distribution. So we know the equation for Gumbel distribution. This we have seen when we were covering continuous random variable, right, when we were talking about different probability distribution that could be used to fit continuous random variable. So at that time we know like a Gumbel distribution is a 2-parameter distribution with alpha and beta being the parameter of distribution, scale and location, and their values ranges is alpha should always be positive and beta should be between minus infinity to plus infinity. So here the important thing to remember in Gumbel distribution is Gumbel's reduced variate, which is given by y. So y could be calculated if you know the value of distribution parameter, that is alpha and beta. So if we know the value of alpha beta, so for any particular event x, we can calculate the reduced variate y. And also if we know the CDF of the distribution, we can also calculate the reduced variate by using the equation minus natural log upon 1 upon f of x, that is 1 upon CDF. Then if we know the probability of an event, by knowing the probability of event, we can and the return period also, we can calculate reduced variate. So there are three different equations depending upon the given set. So if we know the value of alpha and beta, we can use this equation. If we know the value of CDF, we can use second equation, and if we know the value of return period, we can use third equation. Now, if we want to calculate alpha and beta for a Gumbel distribution, so alpha and beta could be calculated from these two equations. So the first equation is to calculate mu, and mu could be calculated by knowing the distribution, parameter distribution, that is alpha and beta. So using this equation, we can calculate the value of mu, and using this equation, we can calculate the value of sigma. Now let us see an example based on extreme value type 1 Gumbel distribution, right? So here in this equation they are saying that the mean of the data is 10,000 meter cube per second and standard deviation is 3,000 meter cube per second. And they are asking us to calculate the magnitude of annual maximum daily discharge with a return period of 100 years. So in this equation we know the value of return period. And they are asking us to calculate the magnitude of annual rainfall and also the probability of that event. So the firstly what we are going to do is, since we know the value of mean, that is mu, so using this equation of mu, we can find the value of beta and alpha, right? because we know the value of mean and we know the value of standard distribution. So firstly we are going to use this equation and we are going to derive a new equation in terms of alpha and beta. Then we are going to use the equation of standard deviation, that is sigma square is equals to 1.64 of alpha square, and from this equation we can get the value of alpha, which is 4.272 10 to the power of minus 4. And now we can substitute alpha in equation of mu and we can calculate the value of beta. So now we have calculated the value of alpha and beta, that is the parameter of Gumbel distribution. Now the second thing is to calculate the reduced variate. Since we know the time return period of 100 years, we can calculate the reduced variate of y. So here we have calculated the value of reduced variate y as y is equals to alpha x minus beta, right? And x value is the value which is whose probabilities we are going to find, that is 15,000 meter cube per second. So reduced variate could be calculated as y is equals to alpha x minus beta, where x is 15,000. So using this equation we have calculated the reduced variate y. And now we are going to calculate is the probability of that particular event, and that we can calculate by using this equation. Probability is equals to 1 minus f of x. So f of x value is nothing but exponential of minus exponential of y, right? So we have known the value of not occurring probability, so we can calculate the value of occurring probability. So 1 minus f of x, it gives us the probability of 0.064. Now the next thing they are asking is to estimate the magnitude of annual maximum discharge with a return period of 100 years. So now we are going to calculate the magnitude of that event whose return period is 100 years. So now the return period is 100 years, means probability is 0.01. So now we are going to calculate is 1 minus f of x, right? So f of x means reduced variate term. So 1 minus exponential of minus exponential, and this is nothing but reduced variate. So here the value of x is not known to us. So from this equation all we need to calculate is the value of x. So what we are going to do is we are going to take exponential term. So in order to remove exponential we are going to take natural log, that to 2 times, and we are going to calculate the value of x. So the value of x is coming to be 19,4092. So this is the probability of occurrence of event whose return period is 100 years. Now there is another example where they are saying is following results are obtained from frequency analysis using Gumbel's distribution for a river. So they have given a return period and they have given the corresponding peak flow value. They are asking us to estimate the magnitude of flood with a return period of 150 years. So we need to calculate the peak flow value for 150 years. So how we can do is, since we know the value of return period, we can calculate the reduced variate value. So first we are going to calculate the reduced variate value for a return period of 50 years. So that value is coming to be 3.90. Then we are going to calculate reduced variate for 100 years and 150 years return period. So we got the value of reduced period for each of the event. That is for a return period of 50 years, 100 years and 150 years. Now next thing is what we are going to calculate is, we are going to calculate the value of alpha and beta, right? Because the value of shape parameter would be same. So alpha and beta would be same for all the 3 events. So we are going to calculate the value of alpha and beta knowing the equation of y, right? So for first we are going to substitute the value of y50 alpha into x. So the value of x for 50 return period is 42,000. So we are going to substitute the value of x as 42,000 minus beta. Then we are going to substitute the value of y equals to 100, because for y equals to 100 return years we know the value of x, that is 48,500. So we have 2 equations, we have 2 unknowns, and then we can calculate the value of alpha and beta. Then again we are going to use the same equation, that is y150 equals to alpha bracket x minus beta. Now we know the value of y150 alpha and beta, then we can calculate the value of the peak flow. So that peak flow is coming to be 52,000. So for a peak flow for a return period of 150 years, the corresponding peak flow is coming to be 52,292.9. So for this event, that is a flood event, we can use type 1 Gumbel distribution, and we have seen two numerical example also. So this is all about hydrological statistics, all the statistics that are used in hydrologic analysis. So this is the summary of today's section. So firstly, we started talking about the hydrological processes that we have covered so far. So far we have talked about precipitation, we have talked about evaporation, evapotranspiration, transpiration, infiltration and runoff. So all these processes have been covered, and there is one common term that is associated with each of these hydrological processes. Each process involves some uncertainty. It means there is some randomness, right? So we can say that all these hydrological variables are nothing but random variables. So then we started talking about random variables and different types of random variables. So firstly, we talked about random variables. What are random variables? Random variables are those variables which can have any value within a certain range, right? And these random variables can be divided into two, discrete and continuous. So if we know a very exact value of a random variable, right, that is the exact count of a random variable. For example, the number of extreme temperature day in a month, right? So that particular number is very finite, right? We know the exact value. Let us say the number of extreme temperature day in a month is 12 or 13 or 15. We know the exact amount. So this makes the random variable as a discrete random variable. But if we don't know the exact number, we know the range of random variable. So that is nothing but that makes it a continuous random variable. Then we talked about the probability distribution. So what does probability distribution tells us or give us? It gives the relationship between the random variable and its corresponding probability values, right? So it depends upon the type of variable, whether the variable is random, discrete random or continuous random. So if it is a discrete random, if we want to calculate the probability of discrete random, we can make the use of probability mass function, and also if we want to find the relation between the cumulative probability and discrete random variable, we could use of cumulative mass function. And for continuous random variable, we could use probability density function or cumulative distribution function. Then we talked about the basics, very basics that have been used in statistics from the very lower class, that is the four measures, that is measure of standard tendency, that is mean, median, mode, which is nothing but the first moment about the origin. Then we talked about measure of dispersion, that is second moment about the mean. Then we talked about skewness, kurtosis, right, that is measure of symmetry, and measure of pickedness, that is third moment and fourth moment about mean. Then we have seen about both the equations, that is when we have a very large data sets, we can use the equation for continuous as well as discrete random variable, and if we have a small data sets, that is sample, then we can use another equation, that is the product divided by the total observation will give us the mean. And similarly we have seen the different equation for each of the measure, that is dispersion, symmetry and pickedness. So we have covered both the cases, that is one case when the data set is very large, and one says when the data set is very small, that is population or sample. Then we talked about different types of probability distribution that are used in hydrological analysis, which depends upon the type of variable. So if the variables are discrete, we could use binomial or Poisson's distribution, which give us the probability, like whether the probability has occurred or whether the probability has not occurred, right? That is occurrence probability or not occurrence probability. Then we have talked about continuous probability distribution. So we have looked into exponential, gamma, normal, Gumbel, right? Then have we talked about frequency analysis. So the main purpose of this is to derive a relationship between the magnitude and the frequency of occurrence with the help of probability distribution, right? So this is very important in case of hydrological, in terms of hydrology, because with the help of frequency analysis we can design the hydraulic structures. Then we talked about return period. Return period is nothing but the time interval between the occurrence of an event, right, which has occurred prior. So here we have derived the relationship between return period and probabilities. So that relation is nothing but probability is inverse of return period. Then we also studied about plotting, probability plotting, right? So probability plotting could be done based on any of the empirical equation. We have seen an example based on Weibel's method, right? So using probability plotting also we can derive the relation between the magnitude and the probability of occurrence of an event. Then we looked into extreme value analysis. So that extreme value analysis, depending upon the type of extreme, so if the extreme is towards the maximum end, we could use extreme value type 1, that is Gumbel 1 distribution, and if the extreme is towards the lower end, that is to lower end, we could use extreme value type 3, that is Weibull distribution. So we have seen into detail of Gumbel distribution, and also we have taken two example of Gumbel distribution. So this is all about hydrologic statistics, that is for week 11 class. In the next class we'll be talking about a new module, that is module 7, and I think module 7 is the last module. So I think probably next week would be the last live interactive session, followed by 1 hour session of entire summary. So I think that entire summary session would be very helpful, so that we can cover and discuss all the important things, because after 19th or 18th of April there won't be any live interactive session. So I request you to ask all the questions in the summary class, which would be there in I think next Wednesday. So we'll meet in next Tuesday, we'll cover module 7, and followed by next day, that is on Wednesday, we'll cover 1 hour session in which we'll cover all the entire syllabus. We'll revise try to cover entire or important topics from entire syllabus. And if you have any particular doubt or particular concept which you want to revise, we can also look into that 1 hour session. So this is all from today's class, I think, and we'll meet in next class, that is on Tuesday, and we'll cover new module, that is module 12.